Still limping along with my pulled tendon, Achilles tendon, right? Achilles heel, Achilles tendon, right? Um, Here's the real question: why are so many? What's the matter with Nikon or Canon? Specifically, this applies more to Nikon. Let's take like the 28mm 1.8G Nikkor and the 35mm 1.8G Nikkor. Both of those lenses are average about $800. I have both of them. The real question is, and I know people lust for faster lenses. In the case of the 28mm f1.4, which is astronomically higher than the 28mm f1.8, additionally so with the 35mm f1.4, are those lenses better than their 1.8 cousins? Now, I know people want a more shallow depth of field. That's understandable. And price being irrelevant, which it never really is, but let's just say price is irrelevant. If those lenses are palpably worse, both in resolution, vignetting issues, I mean, are you really willing to spend 3-4 times as much for that lens to get an f1.4 version as opposed to the perfectly great f1.8? You know, even people that, lust after super fast lenses, I'll notice them saying, I got the super expensive 28mm f1.4. The images are not that good. There's vignetting, chromatic aberration. Usually chromatic aberration pops up, vignetting pops up, sharpness issues, resolution definitely pops up. And I don't just mean nailing the focus, but these lenses are really, really bad values in most all cases. Let's take the Zeiss, for example, and I have both versions. Well, the 35mm f2, which is actually the favorite lens that I own of all my lenses. The best lens I've ever tested, that's the Distagon 35mm f2. The absolute best lens that I own. To me, anyway. I got a couple copies of it. Not that expensive used, about $600-750. I also happen to have the 35mm f1.4. It's an obnoxious. It's about as big as this. This is the 135mm f2 APO sonar Zeiss. It's about this big, a little bit larger. That lens got serious chromatic aberration issues at 1.4. It's not that wonderfully sharp at 1.4. It's enormously huge. It's obnoxiously expensive. And it's not just Nikon's issue. I mean, these are issues with Canon and definitely issues with Nikon. Nikon definitely rules the roost for making half-stop faster lenses that are obnoxiously more expensive and yet really pretty miserable and horrible at f1.4. Also the f1.2, and I've got 3 copies of this lens. That's the 50mm f1.2. It's still made the old way Nikon makes lenses. Nikon still makes AIS manual focus lenses, not many of them. But that lens is not really that good compared to the 50mm f1.4. It's just not. I don't mean the AFS version or the G series Nikkor 50mm 1.4. Even the old screw drive D series 50mm f1.4, or even the older AIS 50mm 1.4. I understand wanting to have that crazy shallow depth of field, but almost all of these lenses at f1.4, or in that case f1.2, these lenses are not only obnoxiously larger, insanely more expensive, but they have no real added value at f1.4. It's like, oh, that's your opinion. But they're not. The sharpness isn't there. You can correct vignetting in post pretty easily. The resolution you can't correct. The chromatic aberration is bad. That's harder to correct. The resolution can't be corrected. They're just not good lenses. People are always asking about these 1.4 Nikkor lenses. It's like, okay, so you want to spend 4 or 5 times as much money for the 1.4 version as opposed to the 1.8. Get a crappy lens that looks horrible, poor resolution, bad chromatic aberration, significant vignetting. Let's just forget the vignetting. Resolution's not good. Yeah. chromatic aberration's bad? No. I know people lust after a huge piece of glass, and recently I've been talking about large glass like this, and this is only an f2, but this is an f2. This is not a... I know that Nikon is actually coming out with a 35mm, excuse me, a 135mm f1.4. That'll be a really huge lens, by the way. I can use my brain and what I know about lenses to actually test drive that lens already using current lens technology and what people are capable of producing as far as lenses. I know that lens will not be so hot. 135mm f1.4. It'll look really unique, and some people will buy it for that unique look. So I won't judge that lens until I've seen it, but yeah, I can already guess what it looks like. Whew. I got nothing against really fast glass, but if you pay 4 times as much, but you're only getting like at most 5% more in the lens as opposed to the 1.8 version, is that really worth it to you? Now, you want what you want, that's understandable, but do you want to pay 4 times as much, but only get a maximum of about 5%? I don't mean light. I know how much more light it is, either half a stop, quarter stop. Do you really want to spend 4 times as much and only get up to 5% max, really, more out of the lens? Like, well, this lens is only, 5% more useful and functional for, what I would like it to do as opposed to the 1.8 version. Yeah, but it only costs 4 times as much, or 3 times as much. My answer would be, generally speaking, no, unless you got a lot of money to piss away, and you don't want to find like the next open fire to throw your money into. You make the choice.